Yeah, and he was the first person that I discovered that, hey, there's somebody actually created a subject talking about PKM. It was about skills, about presentation skills, classification skills, and so forth. Around the same time, there was also another professor, Paul Dorsey, which have published a very similar model on this kind of various dimension of skills that knowledge workers need to possess in order to handle his or her daily knowledge work well. And then there's also this every and all model, which have expanded and extended on the previous one, because this time we are not just talking about classifying and retrieving the information, but we're also talking about analyzing, having better understanding about what's in there, and then presenting it in an effective way. You know, I'm very interested in doing presentations, because every presentation I treat, this one, next one, last one, is an opportunity. Because I can practice it, I can try to understand what the audience concerned, hopefully well before I orchestrate the presentation. I can deliver it, hopefully, in your context. I can draw input from you, I can learn from you, I can respond to things that you have on your mind. We have the third model, PK book model, and this one a lot more IT-centric, because this is about how to actually index, classify, and creating a hierarchy of linked information based on the various topics that you already codified. So obviously technology is a big part to it, and indexing it's core to the effectiveness of this kind of scheme. We have another model, FMOA, if I can pronounce it, or try to pronounce it. This one's starting to look into a community model, and that's also a reflection of the evolution of KM. Initial KM, as all we know, initially, irrespective of which country is doing it, the first state of KM very much is from tacit codification to explicit, right? And we all know that just by doing that, workflow without a strategy is quite limited. Why? Because that's only the tip of the iceberg. And in the second era of KM, people start to realize that, hey, not just codifying, but we should also focus on, lock on, home in to those experts who are supposed to be, or purported as subject matter experts, because we can put various measures around them, build a community, build a special interest group, an expertise register, and so forth, so that these people can share better. Now we have moved on to newer models, which I will talk about later on. So Model 4 kind of reflective about that stage of the development. Model 5 is about competencies. Okay, so it's so much to talk about skills, but somehow we need to measure about learning outcomes. We need to measure about the actual, if you like, ability of how this person can or cannot solve a problem as a result of learning or acquiring certain skill set. So competencies, values, and things like that come into play. So people are less. They still focus on the individual skill set, but they measure at the learning outcomes, at the competency level. So that's indicative of what I've just said in Model 6. That goes even more, talked about the values and what are the typical activities that these people can carry out or should carry out, assuming that they paid certain attention to certain levels of values and also exhibit certain level of competencies. Then towards just before the turn of the last century, the focus tends to go back to technology, or there's more focus to go back to technology. I can only, speculate. The reason is because of the proliferation of Web 2.0 tools, which offers each and every one of us so much flexibility and robustness in creating knowledge, as well as in picking and selecting whatever sort of tools that we can deploy, right? And it also generates a spin like bottom-up infiltration of knowledge and tools and so forth, which now slowly we start to realize that is infiltrating in the workplace. For example, as the movement of bring your own devices, right? If you push the clock back 10 years, I think the answer is no, and no. And now, large organizations like IBM and HP, they're officially approving these kind of things. So it's a great success for bottom-up infiltration. Then the latest one is by Harold Jachi, or maybe I don't pronounce it properly. It's a great model, I think. It's putting on all your skill sets and competencies, applying sense-making, some kind of soft tools to make sense of what problem that you're in and be able to leverage on your skills on your content, the things that you can access, the people that you can access, the network that you possess, and obviously embedding the trust level that you have so enjoy inside the trust, inside the network, to help solve problems and learning. So this is probably the latest one that's indicative of a seminal model. If I can just go back to the early days of PKM and focus on the technological aspect, 1999, I clearly remember, this was the first paper that opened my eyes about personal KM, because once again at that time, 12, 13 years ago, there was little to talk about personal KM. The term doesn't even exist, right? Just about all the KM, you can immediately assume that the focus is about at the enterprise, at the organizational level. And then Steve Barth, an American magazine technology writer, put out this paper. It's more like a magazine article, called The Power of One. It caught my attention, the power of one in terms of technology. Now, and he depicted a chart in his article about 6 or 7 different categories, and then for each category he also show us some of the tools that are available. Don't bother checking that website. I think we'll be very surprised if it's still functioning, right? Because these tools come and go. It's the principle of knowing about these tools, knowing about what represent certain tools during a certain era that is important, rather than always have to use that particular set of tools. So I, obviously won't have time to go through all of those, but if you can run your eyes over the left-hand side, the gap there is obvious, which I will paint something in there. But this is a true reproduction of what Steve Barth had in his paper about the various types of PKM tools. So indexing search, much like what Google and Yahoo can do, but you can index and search it on your local hard drive, on your USB, and also on your intranet stored documents. Meta search, I think everybody knows. It's about, if you have the leverage on several search engines to search something, and you want to save the efforts of multiplying it, then you can use a meta search engine and direct the search and propagate it in parallel to multiple search engines, come back and show you an integrated result, but delineating exactly, for each item, where does it come from and how was it found. Associative links, supposedly, you can open up a document and say that, look, I'm interested in this particular topic, give me all the major links that talked about this particular topic. So it's got a repository to some of the major internet sites representing a particular concept. Information capture and sharing, I think if today's term, the best tool that is living up to this expectation is Evernote, where you can cut and paste anything from anywhere and then throw it into a document or something so that you can make use of it and retrieve it and refer to it later on. Concept mind mapping, I won't talk about it right here because you had an encounter with it this morning, and I'll show you an example later on. Email management, I think, is a key part to us. Unfortunately, email is consuming a lot of our time every day and continue to be. There has to be a much better solution than just the ordinary email sending and receiving. Speech recognition, I think some of you may be using it, or may know what it is. That is, for those who don't know, if you're using Windows or Mac and so forth, in the last few years, the version of the operating system that you're using by default already have a speech recognition engine. Okay, speech recognition engine means that you can truly talk to it. I'm pretty sure there's a German recognition one. Obviously, the major one is English, where you can actually talk to your computer theoretically, ask it to open up different windows, ask it to start different commands. And then you can even ask it to fetch the email. You can say reply and open up a text box. You can start regurgitating what you want to capture and then send an email and so forth. Sounds great, but you have to invest quite a bit of time on it because you have to capture everybody's accent as well as to train the engine to adapt to your speech and so forth. I find that overall speaking, it's not quite mature at the personal level unless you desperately need it because, for example, you're driving. You may be, visually handicapped, or for some other reasons, like you could be working at facilities management, medical devices, and things like that, where you cannot spare your hand to type or press a button. Right. So this morning, I'm led to believe that everyone had a chance to draw some mind maps, and I don't have much to contribute more on a mind map, but I can share you a fascinating incident that I had. This is quite a few years back. When I had my PhD student. Peter, and one day I asked Peter, it's about 3 or 4 weeks before you have your final oral examination. which is a key hurdle as a PhD student you need to go through. And I asked, Peter, would you have a PowerPoint, a draft of a PowerPoint so that I can have a look? He said, what PowerPoint? I'm not going to use a PowerPoint. Wow, you don't have a PowerPoint? That's your thesis examination? He said, I have a mind map. A mind map presentation? Well, indeed he had, he showed me his mind map. That's a portion of it. And, it's pointing everywhere, and pointing into a section. For example, if someone said that, look, show me your literature review, an evolution of this particular concept. Who first talked about it? What did you summarize out of it? And how is it being related to some other topics? And he can show me a pipeline of the major stages. And if I zoom further and further in, he can actually show the PDF with all his annotations, right? And similarly, he can justify it about any point that he said, and he can immediately pull up the link and the PDF showing that particular author citing that thing that he was referring to. So it clearly opened my eyes for that. So the lesson learned for me is the really, really good stuff comes through to me that you don't realize how it was done. Right? So when a PowerPoint doesn't look like a PowerPoint, when a mind map doesn't look like a mind map, there's something in there. Alright, so I show an earlier version of that, but the earlier version, 1999, obviously, we cannot expect Steve Barth to have the two red entries. Why? Because those only came out around about the last 10 years of the previous century. So obviously there was not there, and I add to it because I suppose, and I believe there is enough evidence to justify those two in there. So among those two, again, we won't have time to talk about all those at all, but I will talk about personal learning environment using Google tools, and I also want to talk about a wiki that I've set up. We have set up and experimented with at PolyU, because knowing that you had a personal wiki just before lunch, is that right? Okay, so now, seriously speaking, we can set up a wiki to do collaborative editing, but it's also serious that if your wiki becomes more and more popular, more and more people can access it, over the years it may reduce to some kind of a not so valuable repository. Why? Because there could be input that may not be too relevant. There could be input that are deviated from what you want to consolidate, and so forth. So the quality of a wiki over a long period of time, it's of great interest for research. So what we have done is we worked out, based on various literature review, we worked out that, of course, there are many factors that affect the quality of knowledge. Now, this is a very big topic about the quality of knowledge that can be accumulated inside a repository, including a wiki. So what we have done is we try to control many of the other factors whenever we can, and one of the things that we tightly control is to design a wiki which on some occasions wouldn't allow people to edit. We separate wikis, identical wikis. For some wikis people can only read, so you can read wikis 1, 2, 3, 4, but you can only edit on wiki 5, all right? And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, they all have the original content. They all have the original discussion, and different people reply to it. Put it this way, in the academic context, if I have a class of 30 to 40 students, my experience is, if I bang all of them into one wiki, over a semester, I give them 10 marks. I give you a maximum 10 or 15 marks. You know what happened? Well, obviously you're not a teacher. Well, it's a bit like Wikipedia. I would end up having 3 or 4 students who are very, very active, irrespective of the marks, and I would have another, 10 or 20 who are only active in the last day before I cut off for the marks, and the rest, I have to go to other galaxy to find them. Right? So that's not very good, right? Because that means it's only a small group of people who are actively and passionately contributing. These are good, but they are in a very, very small minority. The other people, they've either given up, don't care, or they do that just for the final minute rush to get some marks, right? So it came down to a number of factors. One of the things is, it's after chasing up some of the students and asked them for the honest disclosure, they said that, look, we feel that we're not confident to reply, and we feel that if we reply, we may make a big foul out of it. It could be a laughing joke by other people because we may ask a stupid question and things like that.